Alright, so, man, I've made this video, I think twice now. This will be the third time I try. You know what I say? Third time's a charm. Alright, so, this is gonna be the first a couple of video responses to, Yogi0abs or Yogi0abs. I don't really know that even knows. Maybe I feel the same way everyone feels when they think of my username, BASSFZz. Huh. Anyhow, so first, before we get into it, I got some explaining to do. Basically, I'm gonna explain the preamble, which is how we got here. So basically, what happened was there was a dating coach by the name of Amy. What's her name? Young? I think it's Amy Young. And a couple of years ago, she made a video explaining why women do not date nice guys or genuinely good men until later in their life. And she made an analogy where she says dating is like going to a grocery store, and the nice men are avocados, and the bad men are bananas. Excuse me. And she says when a lot of women go looking in the store, they go grocery shopping, they look at the bananas, and they pick the bananas, take the bananas home, and then they realize that the banana is not an avocado. It's not really the most well thought out analogy, but her conclusion was that after going to the grocery store numerous times looking for avocados, most of the time women are not actually looking for the avocados they say they want. They end up getting distracted by the bananas that are present to them that are on sale. They are closer to the entrance of the store, whatever. So Yogi saw that there were some MGTOWs who made video responses to Amy Young, and they sounded bitter. It sounded like bitter men who think that women should date nice guys, or, as he puts it, that nice guys deserve to be with these good women, or to be with women in general, I guess. He didn't really stipulate that they were good women. But yeah, that's how we got here. And so he made those videos, and then there were some responses, and then we got this one. Now, in this video here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little differently. I'm not going to go point by point because his video is 20 minutes long, and I'm not doing that shit. So I'm going to take out the sections that I want to highlight and criticize, and just kind of encourage you as a viewer to go watch his original video in full, so you guys know that I'm not trying to misinterpret him. In fact, if I don't want him to be misinterpreted at all, because you guys will see. I think he says some right dumb shit. I really do. So what I'm going to do first, so you guys understand where he's coming from, I'm going to play the intro to his video. And then I'm going to skip a huge part where he responds to some comments. And then pick out the parts that I need to respond to. He shall take us away.
All right, so I'm going to address a huge delusion among the MGTOW community, men sent their own way community. This is a delusion that, nice guys are worthy of the women that they desire. That's not how it works. So let me clarify something. The men that have been divorced, that did everything right, but feminism is definitely to blame for their divorce, not just their inability to understand women and be the type of man that can create a successful relationship, the type of man that your grandfather was, hardworking, good-spirited, and could easily find a woman that could commit to him for the rest of his life, right? So definitely feminism increases the divorce rate. This has been known for over 100 years, ever since the earliest days of the women's rights movement. But then there's another type of MGTOW, the young guy who absorbs the pain, the trauma of these other MGTOWs, and these guys who create content, the MSTOWs. So a MGTOW is the guy that, gets married, gets divorced, maybe tries again, and realizes that the system isn't in our favor. The MSTOW is the guy who hasn't had that lived experience, but what he has also not had is a lot of success with women. And so he gets very, very upset when his beliefs are challenged, and he drinks the Kool-Aid every single day by watching all these anonymous MSTOW channels where they just complain. Is there wisdom in MSTOW? Absolutely, absolutely. I've learned a lot from MSTOW. The problem is that when we ingest the trauma and pain of others and it becomes our own, we're not actually seeing reality. So what I'm going to do in this video is just respond to some of the more concerning viewpoints in the MGTOW community. Namely that, nice guys should get the girls. They shouldn't finish last.
And she goes home and then she cries about it and complains that, oh my God, there are no avocados left. They're there. You just have to go looking for them.
So they don't want to have to put anything in. They don't want to have to put in any work into relationships. They just want everything, to be good for them. They don't want they want to get value out of it, but they don't want to put any in. They don't want to look for the nice guy.
Those were the two MGTOWs that I critiqued in a video from 2 days ago. And if you haven't been caught up to speed on that, the avocado is the good guy from a pretty bad analogy that this girl named Amy came up with on her YouTube channel. She's a dating coach for women. And her advice was basically exactly what these MGTOWs want, is go for the nice guy, go for the good guy. That's what we should do. But because they're so traumatized and in such pain from not ever getting those girls, from being the avocado and then watching the bananas get all the girls, when they see her retell that story, they imagine as if it was every high school dance, every college bar they went to, every club they went to. They relive that trauma. And that's why we see the type of reaction we saw in my video. Such a angry response to Amy's video. It was beyond delusional. When I looked at J-Dog and Hercules in the comments, I was like, how does anybody not see that she's actually telling women to make better decisions, but doesn't really know how to? How come nobody is seeing that and is just reliving their failure?
And to that, I have to say, Yogi does have a very good point here. Amy's original video does clearly end with the conclusion that women should try to think more critically, or at least look for the men that they're actually saying that they want, rather than being distracted by the bananas. Now, honestly, there is an honest frustration that a lot of men, especially who collect themselves on the internet, have with dating women, especially when those men are genuinely trying to date women. And it's something I have a lot of empathy for, and it's part of the reason why I've spent so much time on my channel dedicated to explaining, the confusing, just the confusing mindset that a lot of women have. Because it is frustrating, honestly, trying to do the best you can and trying to be the best man you can be, only to find out that a woman doesn't want a man that's already good. She wants a broken product that she can fix herself. That's a little simplified, but I'll talk a lot more complexly, in the future, in future videos. But for now, I do have to say, Yogi does have a point here. And that's kind of the only point he really has, honestly. You'll see. Now, like I said, at this point, I'm going to skip the sections of the video where he responds to the comments. I will say he does a very poor job of doing so, which you'll see if you watch his video in full, but that's all I'm going to say in this video. We're going to move forward to this statement here.
Sorry, because they feel that I was that guy, I was that provider, I deserve you. Look, there's evidence. You're saying, where have all the good guys gone? Look, we've left because you've taken the bananas in your 20s, early 20s. Now when you're, hitting the wall and you're close to 30 and above, now you want the good guys so you can use them. Ha, I'm not going to let you. That's literally, 65, 70% of every single MGTOW video.
Now, I don't know much about the ratio, but I will say that he is right. There is a lot of, I would say, a very vindictive tone in a lot of the commentary a lot of MGTOW have. But honestly, I don't think I really share the same disdain or annoyance that Yogi seems to be implying here. Even earlier, you'll catch that Yogi was saying a lot of these guys who were nice and they were trying to date women by being kind are reliving the trauma of being passed over for some other guy that treated the woman badly. I honestly would have to say that he might be right so far in the sense that their anger and their vindication may be clouding their judgment, maybe making them more bitter and maybe hurting them in the long run, because that's something I would totally agree with if he is saying that. But it doesn't really seem to be that's the angle that he's coming from. It does seem to be more he's just kind of speaking from annoyance, and it seems more he's speaking from, disdain. Not so much as far as him actually trying to help these men move past their feelings, but to say that these men should be disregarded for having these feelings to begin with. And honestly, I don't really think that that's fair, because if this is their lived experience, and that means that that's what happened to them. They didn't wake up on Saturday and just was like, no, fuck this shit. Yeah. You know, what happened was they were passed over and they were mistreated by women. That's how they got to this point. And is it true that there's a lot of men who are MGTOW who are very vindictive in their commentary? Yeah, certainly. But honestly, being upset with them for being vindictive is kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say circular, but it's kind of missing. It's missing a lot, I would have to say, especially considering how they got there to begin with. And if the idea is to help them not be so vindictive, we're going to actually have to start trying to fix problems or figure out how they got there to begin with. And I don't really think that it's very fair for Yogi to have such disdain for these guys when, I mean, that's just the lives that they've lived. They didn't choose to have this shit happen to them. That's just what happened to them. It's like being upset with the homeless guy for being homeless, or being upset with the foster kid for being a foster kid. Like, it wasn't, it's like they didn't ask for that. Well, maybe the homeless guy did. Maybe he did. But the foster kid, yeah.
It's just coming up with an explanation as to why being a good guy is a good thing, and enacting some sort of revenge over the fact that these women, when they hit the wall, now you want me. Look, now you want me.
But you call it a revenge fantasy, my brother, but you have to admit that this is actually something that occurs quite a bit. There's actually, it's probably the one time I found a subreddit that I think is kind of hilarious. There is a subreddit called Where Are All the Good Men, or Where Have All the Good Men Gone, where there will be posts of different women kind of coming to terms with the fact that they kind of fucked themselves over, and now they're looking for some man to be nice to them and will treat them well. That is something that happens to a lot of women when they get older. And if you're going to dismiss that as just some kind of revenge fantasy, I have to say, brother, you're not paying attention to reality, because that is the reality of what is happening. And now I'm going to skip around a little bit more and only pick out the parts that really need to be addressed. Okay? So if you watch this full video, you'll see the parts where I'm skipping out on, and hopefully you can see why I'm doing it.
For whatever reason, women are making the wrong choice, and then they realize it in their 30s. I will say that this is happening more and more today compared to, 100 years ago or even 50 years ago. But the reason why I will differ from Miss Tao on this is because it's rooted in nature.
Now, my friends, we will get to what has brought us here from the very beginning. He's going to take us away.
Okay, so the reason why we can't blame women for not choosing the good guys or the avocados in their early 20s is because there is something created by Mother Nature, a program that is designed to ensure healthy survival of the species.
Now, here's the thing. You'll notice that Yogi does not even give a name to this programming that is somehow found its way in women. You'll also notice that there's no real honest, deep explanation as to how this programming actually helps out to the survival of the species, because when you stop and think critically about what he's implying, you realize that this programming does not help a healthy survival of the species at all. Well, that's only if you stop and think about it for all of 20 seconds.
So yeah, you might be upset if there's a study showing that, paternity tests have found that, a significant minority of fathers aren't actually fathers for their children, but her wife banged somebody else and he's the provider. So yeah, you might be upset if there's a study showing that, paternity tests have found that, a significant minority of fathers aren't actually fathers for their children, but her wife banged somebody else and he's the provider.
So, again, whatever this biological programming is in women, it somehow compels them to, let us cut through the bullshit, my friends, cuck their husbands. I mean, there's no explanation as to what this programming is. There's not even any explanation as to why cuckoldry of the species is even reasonable or a feasible way for human beings to reproduce and mate, but for some reason it's just there. Now, not just because I have a personal disdain for cuckoldry, but when I stop and I think critically about it, one, whatever this biological programming that still has yet to even be named exists, to say that cuckoldry, or that women cuck their husbands because it's evolutionarily advantageous to the species or it helps them reproduce, just seems ridiculously stupid to me. Point of fact, number one, if a woman is already married to a man, or already has a husband, or just a boyfriend she's having sex with, then biologically speaking, she's already has selected a man of which to reproduce with. Now, the only reason why she would want a man that's different is not for any biological reason, but for clearly a social or economic reason, which is a huge reason of why, or even mental and emotional. But from a purely biological sense, she's already been successful in that area. The reason why women cheat are a little bit more complex than they're thinking, I need to get the best sperm. In fact, ironically enough, what a lot of women are doing when they cheat is they're trying to monkey branch or move between another man. So they're not cucking the man so they keep the provider. They're trying to move over to another provider. This is what we've seen consistently. So just looking at, you know, the mating strategy of a very shameless woman, because anyone with honor would never do such a thing. The mindset of the shameless woman that does this, still cuckoldry, is very unreasonable because, one, it's very inconsistent. The idea that a woman would play with the fire, that is cucking a man, is totally unreasonable and totally unstable, because if that man realizes that he's been cucked, without the government, without child support or anything like that, that woman's just out. She's done. Her kid, done. The man that probably did impregnate her probably wouldn't want to have anything to do with a married woman or a woman in a relationship anyway. I mean, maybe, you know, life's complex, but usually that's not the case. The reason why I don't find this to be, even evolutionarily speaking, to be advantageous is because it's uncertainty. It's because cucking a man, because men in general are not people who, you know, take kind to cheaters. You know, this seems to be pretty universal for men. You know, we are not individuals that enjoy being cucked. We're not people who enjoy having the people that we care about, you know, cheating on us. So with that being the case, it just doesn't seem that this strategy would evolve reasonably, especially not even in today's society, mostly because now we have DNA testing. You know, for a woman to cuck her husband and get away with it, she'd have to pick a man that looks similar to her husband. Because if she picks a man that looks completely different than the guy, it's going to be pretty easy to tell that the kid is not his. You know what I mean? Versus... And then what's stranger still is, why the fuck would the woman cheat on a guy that looks like her husband when she could just have children with her husband, you know? So let's move forward.
Capitalized upon such that you can have endless strings of affairs and with these alpha guys, but never actually have the consequence of being pregnant for 9 months and then taking care of a baby. So
now, he says that, but that only exists in, I would say, a fantasy or a perfect, well, I wouldn't even say it's perfect, but in terms of the actual observable reality, most women who are doing this are not aborting their children. And honestly, you probably shouldn't want them to, but I don't. But, or most women that are doing this are not on birth control. Should be. We are getting a bunch of bastard children from women who are cucking their husbands this way, or from women who are picking to have sex with, a la, say, drug dealer. This happens quite a bit, my friends. We are getting a lot of bastard children from women, from men that never wanted to be fathers, who just from friends with benefits, or just some guy at the bar, or just some jackass she met at a gas station. Excuse me. Even though in a fantasy world where women are just on so much contraceptive because they don't want to get pregnant, of course she would be able to get away with this. But these women are not getting away with it. And in fact, their children are the one that are ultimately suffering the consequences of her bringing them up in a broken home or in a home without their father around. It's a little bit more complex than what Yogi here is describing, that these women are picking these shitty men or these awful men, because I mean that's what the dichotomy is, are picking these awful men for any evolutionary reason. Ironically, the vast majority of the time when women are having sex with these men, they're not doing it because they think that these are the best providers or they think that these guys have the best genetic material or anything like that. They're either doing it to gain some social clout or they're doing it because fuck it feels good. It's just that simple. It is literally because these women are not thinking critically about who their father of the children are going to be, they're having sex with these men. It is literally because these women are not evolutionarily thinking or thinking of anything to do with evolution or anything to do with having children in its nature, that these guys have been so successful in having sex with these women and bringing forth these destructive homes. It is definitely not helpful at all. Now, women are able to get away with this only so far as there are some men who will definitely raise children that aren't theirs, and there are some men who will definitely come and fit that bill. But is cuckolding a reasonable thing? Is having sex with these men reasonable in any capacity? Is it even helpful evolutionarily speaking? Are these even the best genes? I would have to say no, not at all, but Yogi's going to continue.
These are some very serious problems that MGTOW talks about, which are absolutely correct, but they take a very one-sided perspective on this. The reality is that even the most good traditional girls have this instinct in them where during ovulation, so she can't be on birth control for this because it blocks ovulation. So ovulation is the period in her menstrual cycle where her hormones are at their peak, and they're not necessarily the horniest, but mentally they are most primed to, and physically, to receive the highest quality DNA. So she's most likely to get pregnant through unprotected sex right in the middle of her cycle around day 14.
Now, what he's saying isn't wrong. It's just that it's not accurate. It's not that they're primed for receiving the highest quality of DNA. It's not about... These women are not having sex with men. Biology is not selecting for the best traits. In fact, evolution is not about making anything better. It's just about what works. So any frame of reference when it comes to evolution about improving is incorrect. It is simply about what gets people to survive, what gets people to survive in that particular environment, and what gets people to reproduce from that environment. So the idea that these women are ovulating and then that somehow makes it so that they're trying to gain the best sperm of the man is just not right. Your body can't regulate that. Your body doesn't know. All it knows is that, hey, I can get pregnant right now, so give me some. That's all that really is about. It's not about quality at all. So it might feel like a nitpick, but I do think it's very important that we have to put into this frame of reference. We have to understand that, again, these women are not dating these men because they think that they're the best provider. They think that they're the best men to have children with. It is literally the absence of that thought. It is literally them not considering who these men will be or how these men will be fathers. That is what is going on there. And you could say that evolutionarily speaking, that this does help the species survive and reproduce. However, it is causing, I would say, an evolution to where humans are not being able to pair bond regularly and creating destructive mentalities for a lot of people. That, again, is very complex and I'll have to get into some other time.
And actually, her vagina will secrete different kinds of cervical fluid that's stickier to the sperm. So it's more likely to go back in there and fertilize her ova. And you can't hate this biological program. It's just there.
Now, see, I fundamentally disagree for two reasons. One, I don't even think that this is a biological program that exists in women. I think it's the absence of their thoughts, not the presence of it, or the absence of any reasonable mate selection skills or at all. But reason number two, and I think this one's a little bit more important, we have to pretend that women are, how do I put this delicately, stupid, in order to think that we cannot criticize their behaviors or that we cannot criticize what they're doing. And I am not from the school that women don't have functioning cognitive systems, and that women cannot think, well, how do you say, critically about the men that they are having sex with. Now, some women are stupid. Some women are just dumb. Like, that's true. That happens. You get some dumbasses here. But as a whole, we have a frontal lobe, my brother. We can think logically and rationally. And I would expect that women, to some degree, have the ability to do that too. Now, I don't really think that women do think logically on a regular basis, but do they possess the capacity to? Yeah. Yeah, of course they do. And that's where MGTOW, and I think a lot of men in the manosphere, are coming from. They respect the fact that women do indeed have the capacity to think critically. So even if this was a biological programming in women, because we're human beings and we have the ability to override any instinct that we have whenever we want to, it is totally fair game for us to say that, hey, ladies, how about you not a fucking drug dealer?
But you can kind of control her tendencies a little bit through morality, religion, traditionalism, and the knowledge that, you know, if she reinforces this behavior over and over and over again, say even if she's not ovulating, she's on birth control and she's just going for, you know, those guys using the online dating apps and so on and just being very promiscuous, that she's going to end up lonely and single in later life, which is a reality for a lot of very unfortunate women.
Now, see, this is a really strange point of view to me, Yogi, because you then are trying to tell us that this is a program that exists in women. And then you're trying to say, oh, wait, we can actually control it. And then it's like, well, dude, if you think it can be controlled or curtailed, then what are you even trying to prove? What's even your point? Are you trying to say that MGTOW are wrong? Or MSTOW or whatever are wrong for trying to do that? Or are you saying that they should try to do that? Actually, no, you explained that you don't think that they should be trying to do that. So I'm just even now more confused now I think about it.
And that's why I really have no sympathy for these MSTOWs who insist that women should go for these nice guys. Because you're basically saying, hey, evolution, past 4 million fucking years of evolution, can you just like reverse what you did? So that, you know, we stop caring about, you know, propagating our species and just like be nice and go for those nice guys. Like,
and so it is here where I truly question our friend's intelligence here, because Yogi, you do know that a German Shepherd is just a wolf that's just been artificially selected by human beings to have specific traits that we want, right? Actually, every species of dog that's not a wild wolf would fit that category. You're picking up what I'm putting down on the table here, mate. Basically, as human beings, we artificially select for traits that we want all of the time. And you might want to get into arguments of eugenics, but honestly, mate selecting is, in some capacity or in some degree, biological, just natural eugenics. Most people, I don't even know if I could say most people, but I would say in general, people are indeed trying to find the best traits that they want in a mate, usually. And those traits might express themselves differently to different people, but that is kind of what we want, and I think that that's totally fair. You can't really force it out of people, even if you wanted to. But the idea that we can't select traits that we want in our children, like kindness, responsibility. Hell, even if you wanted fucking height. If a woman really just wanted her sons to be tall, it is genuinely her prerogative to pick a man that's tall. So the idea that we can't criticize women to pick or select traits that are reasonable to the betterment of their children, that's just going to make their children's lives better, just seems dumb to me, honestly, Yogi. Like, it just, honestly, the idea that we as human beings, literally, who have done this very thing to dogs, we can't just pick, and it's not even saying that we should try to change people physically, that we should try to breed out white people. I don't even think that's a thing. I don't think we should try to breed out any race of people, but just selecting people who want to be fathers, point number one. Selecting men who are going to be present in their kids' lives, who are going to treat those kids well, who are going to provide for those kids, who are going to be wise and treat their children well, give them knowledge, information, and skills. To say that a woman should pick a man like that somehow flies in the face of evolution just seems kind of stupid to me, honestly. It just seems like a crock of bullshit. Honestly, women can think logically, they can be reasonable, and they have the capacity to override any instinct that they may have. I don't even think that this is an instinct present in women, but if it was, they have the capacity to do that. So to somehow say that we shouldn't hold women to any sort of accountability or responsibility because of some biological programming, that somehow this flies in the face of evolution in nature by saying that women should date men that fucking treat them well, just seems like some dumb shit to me, honestly. I have to say. If we are honestly looking for functionality, and evolution, picking men who are strong and kind and wise is just gonna make everyone's life better. And I'm gonna end the video here. Hopefully you guys have watched this full video so you guys know that I'm not misinterpreting him, or at least I'm trying my best not to misinterpret Yogi, because I do really think that what he is saying is just kind of stupid on its face, and I want you guys to know what he's actually saying is stupid. I don't really need to misinterpret him. I want you guys to understand what he's saying fully so you can see just how asinine this shit is. The idea that women have some kind of biological programming in them that makes them want to be with guys who are shitty and terrible and awful just doesn't make any sense. One, because some women don't. Point number two, a lot of the time when women do date these men who are awful, they're not dating the men because they're awful. There's some other reason as to why they're doing that, which I'll have to get into some other time. And three, the women that do date men who are this shitty, who are particularly this shitty, are oftentimes mentally unstable. There's oftentimes always something wrong with option number three. And then point number four, even if this was an instinct present in all women, the idea that we as men, or that any human being ever, should just accept that this is the shit that we have to deal with and just watch us all be miserable, I don't know, just doesn't seem reasonable to me. If women can think logically, if men can think logically, if we have the capacity to think critically about our lives and the decisions that we make, it's totally unreasonable to just accept that it's just nature and we should just let women pretty much destroy themselves by dating men who are going to abuse them or treat them horribly. It's just not reasonable no matter how you slice it. So that's the first video that I'm making. I find his premise here to just be out there. But in the next video, Yogi asked some of the women in his female audience to tell him how they feel about nice guys. And I want to take a look at some of those responses and really show you guys exactly what I mean when I talk about the man who is nice or kind and the man who is passive. So stay tuned for that. So with that being said, man, I just hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And if you did, man, go ahead and click the like button. Go and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. As always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.